in time? No. Liberal press pushing the cuts language of Jagmeet Singh. So Jagmeet Singh was taking aim at Pierre Poilievre, and he says Pierre Poilievre is going to cut, and we're the antidote for those cuts. We're hopeful, which is nonsense. And the things that need cutting, like the free drugs that we pay for and all of the crony insider deals that give money to insiders, all of that needs seriously to be cut, needs serious cuts. There we go. That hits it. So it's one of those things that they say, oh no, cuts. And they think that they're harming Pierre Poilievre, but everybody's saying, listen, we already like him. You don't need to sell us on it. And again, I'll say, I am not a Conservative Party supporter because I feel like, unfortunately, they're going to roll out mostly the same policies as the Liberals. Unfortunately, like the 2030 agenda is going to stay intact, but the details will change, and the details will change enough. People will be richer because they'll have more money in their pocket because the taxes will be less, but we'll still be chasing the faulty dragon of net zero, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that that's going to still be harmful. But there's a lot of people who like Pierre Poilievre and a lot of people who will hear cuts and say, you don't have to convince us. So that's the point I was making. Federal workers have to go back to work 3 days a week. And they're saying this is the worst, outrageous, most egregious thing to ever happen to workers ever in the history of working. Wow. So that's kind of funny. Job losses in the forestry sector due to sanctions and softwood stuff between the US and Canada. So there's trade battles, and this is an ongoing thing. I remember reading about this in the 90s. I mean, like, my dad liked flyers, and he'd read the paper and he'd put the paper down, and then he'd read the flyers and I'd read the paper. And I remember reading about that before I got the flyers. So anyway, regardless, I was a weird kid. The return of kitchen table talks. I know a lot of people have been asking, like, hey dude, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, maybe an election. What's going on? Kitchen table talks. So yes, we're going to come back with kitchen table talks. That'll be Sunday, September 15th at 1 p.m. I'll be sending out an email. If you want to join the email list for Kitchen Table Talks, just go to CanadaPoly.com and you will be able to see the joining thing on the right-hand side. Maybe I'll show it. Hold on, I'll show it. It's right here. Actually, I should have a heading that says join the email list or whatever, but here's where you join the email list. You do that and you put your name and you click the I'm not a robot, and then you subscribe, and boom, you should be good to go. So that's how you join the Kitchen Table Talk list if you want to join in the Kitchen Table Talks, and we'd love to see you. It would be lots of fun, and we hang out from around 1 to around 2, and I get into the green room around 10 to 1, so we hang out and talk about things that are going on, talk about what we're going to talk about on the show, and then we do the show, and it's very informal. And basically, the whole idea of the Kitchen Table Talk is to get a dipstick across Canada. You know, it's like man on the street, but whoever wants to come in and chat. And people give us different perspectives from different parts of the country, and I think it's really valuable. And a whole bunch of those people are my friends, and they're wonderful people to hear their experiences directly from. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope maybe you join us. We'd love to see you. Okay, so there's lots to get to. Oh, Jagmeet Singh, the last thing, and where we're going to start is Jagmeet Singh is going to make sure he gets his pension. Gosh darn it! So he is going to make sure that he supports the Liberals all the way to next spring until after he gets his pension. So then we're going to go to an election, maybe February, March. Probably not February. It's cold in February, March, right? So that's when the prediction is. That's what we think is happening. Lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Jagmeet Singh and his ripping up of the supply and confidence deal, and him trying to not trigger an election and explain why he didn't want to have a formal agreement with the Liberals, but he still supports them mostly, and he's not going to take us to an election. But he had to rip up the confidence and supply deal now because they're incompetent and terrible and awful, and Canadians can't afford them. But we'll just case by case basis. People are calling him out for this, and it's great. It's funny, but I don't think that it's even like. I think so far we've got more from Jagmeet Singh movement from him than I expected. So wow, I didn't think the pressure campaign would work, but it, like 3 weeks later, it worked. The Six Buzz TV says NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says video announcing the death of the NDP Liberal Pact was shot weeks ago. Maybe, I guess maybe, but I don't know. AB Free is responding to Jim Murphy. Jim says, does anyone believe that Jagmeet Singh will stop voting lockstep with Trudeau on confidence matters? I don't. This is just smoke and mirrors to appease people so he looks less like Trudeau's patsy. Yeah, to a degree, I think that that's true. And AB Free says, the question for Jagmeet is, fine, if you are really quitting Trudeau, then why don't you bring down the government today? The truth is he won't. It's all just a facade to stall the Liberal NDP uniparty slide into oblivion. The election is still next year. accurate. I can't disagree. I think that that's all true. And he's trying to be, he's trying to signal like, I'm on your side, the people, against Galen Weston, but the people are against Justin Trudeau and his idiot carbon taxes and his idiot NDP leader who keeps propping him up. And so people aren't buying it, but Jagmeet Singh's acting as if people are buying it. Here's Son of a Bench, and he says, there you have it. Jagmeet Singh said he will continue to support the Liberals and the Liberal government both this fall and next spring if the Liberal government does what the NDP wants. So here's Jagmeet Singh talking about that.
What do you need to see from the fall economic statement or spring budget in order to support the Liberals on votes?
For any question around votes, we're going to make that determination on a vote-by-vote basis. So we're going to see what the government presents, and as an opposition party, we'll look at it, and then we'll make our decision. But because I ripped up the agreement with Justin Trudeau, I know this now means that an election timing has become more uncertain, more likely. And we know that that means people will have a choice to make.
You need to see from the
So kind of a pivot, right? He's saying, now that I've done this, and he's trying to highlight, look, I'm moving us towards an election, which is probably how he's maintaining no leadership review for the NDP. We're moving in the direction. We've got to do it in a particular way, right? He's selling this to his caucus. And the press don't believe him. I don't think the public believe him. And like, it's just going to bleed the NDP seats dry even more. I think I saw them down to 12, although I've seen other ones with them 24. So yeah, Jagmeet Singh is going to vote lockstep. Here's gov.exe is corrupt, says Jagmeet Singh is setting the stage for a March 25 election, saying he no longer supports Justin Trudeau because of corporate greed, even though government takes more than half of people's income through various taxes and fees. What a pathetic POS. So here's, again, it's the government greed thing. And again, I don't think people are buying this. I am certainly not buying this. Here we go.
What specifically led to the decision to cancel the agreement with the Liberals? Were there any recent developments or turning points that triggered this decision?
Thank you for the question. We've got a lot done. We've got some important things that we completed. But it became very clear to me that Justin Trudeau is too beholden to corporate interests to go further, unwilling to stop big corporations that are ripping off Canadians. And so I've ripped up the supply and confidence agreement with Justin Trudeau. And we know that that makes the election timing more uncertain and frankly more likely. And we know that the next election is going to be about a choice, a very important choice for Canadians, between Pierre Poilievre, who wants to destroy our healthcare system, tear it down, or New Democrats who want to fix our healthcare system, build it up for people. That's an important choice, and that's the choice we're bringing to Canadians.
I don't think anybody's looking at Pierre Poilievre or Jagmeet Singh. I don't think there's anybody who's making that consideration. Brian Lilly says, I asked Jagmeet Singh a very simple question at least 4 times. Do you have confidence in the Trudeau government? He has been asked previously by other journalists. I'll show you that in just a second. He refused to answer. He always pivots to Canadians have a choice to make. This is the choice between me and Mr. Poilievre, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very funny because it's silly. And Alex shares this. Just when you thought Jagmeet Singh's day couldn't get any worse, Vasi takes him to Pound Town. And right, okay. And says Vasi doesn't give 1 quarter. Why now? Why not a year ago? I suspect a trifecta. Liberals and NDP both tanking in the polls and almost converging. The BC election, and we're 5 months from Jagmeet Singh's pension coming through. Can they drop the government before that? They need Jagmeet Singh to drop the government, or the caucus of the NDP to revolt, remove him, and then drop the government. Either way, it seems like you need the NDP, and it doesn't look like the NDP is willing to play ball, except Jagmeet Singh's trying to save his skin by maintaining leadership, by moving this forward. But it feels like shadowboxing or pantomime, false, fake, right? We're supposed to believe it's true, but we all know that that's a man in that dress. In pantomime, the main character, lots of people play multiple roles, but usually the main male also plays a female in drag. I don't know. It never bothered me. It still doesn't. It's kind of funny. Okay, here is Jagmeet Singh and Vasi Kapolis.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Good to see you. Thank you so much for making the time.
My pleasure.
In the comments you made today, you called the Liberals and the government more specifically weak and selfish.
They are too weak and too selfish.
They've let Canadians down.
Justin Trudeau has let Canadians down.
They've abandoned Canadians, and that they have led to endless disappointment.
Endless disappointment.
Can you ever support them going forward after saying that?
We've torn up the agreement with Justin Trudeau. I've torn that up. And I know that that means election is more likely than before. And it is really clear to me, there's mounting evidence that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were just too weak to take on corporate greed. They were too beholden to corporate interests to stop big corporate grocery stores and corporate landlords from ripping people off.
But ripping up the agreement is just ending the formality of it. You explicitly said, for example, in that video, that you will continue to consider whether or not to support the government on matters of confidence on a case-by-case basis. Again, I'll put the question to you. You have told Canadians they are weak, they are selfish, that they have abandoned the very people who put them in office. You just described a host of reasons why you don't want to be a part of any formal agreement. How can you reconcile for Canadians watching now that you're still willing to vote with them and keep them in power on a case-by-case basis?
Well, I don't know what the votes are going to be.
I have to also ask you, Mr. Singh, why now?
It's kind of a cop-out, eh? Like, I don't know what the votes are going to be. You just called them too weak to take on corporate greed? I don't know what the vote's going to be. No matter what the vote's going to be, you just said that they're too weak to take on corporate greed. So they're never going to take on corporate greed. So you'll see what they say in the next thing that they bring forward? What? It doesn't make any sense, right? Here's a little bit more from Vasi.
And in particular, you know, I've done so many interviews with you. I'm sure you're sick of them, where I ask you the question, like, this is the way in which you're describing the government. Why are you still keeping them in power? I don't understand what changed, saliently over the last number of days or weeks that led you to make this decision now versus, let's say, 6 months ago. You point to corporate greed, for example, particularly in the grocery sector. Food prices were at their highest over a year ago, and the government wasn't doing much even then. Why didn't that force you to make this decision? Is this more about really polling and your electoral chances, and some would accuse in the Conservatives your pension?
Not at all. First of all, let's put that to rest. That's a lie being propagated by Pierre Poilievre, who's, I think, got his full pension when he was like 31. So I don't know. He wants to cut people's pensions. Speaking of pensions, he wants to cut seniors' pensions.
Pivot.
I mean, that's what we should talk about, the fact that we want to.
So he moved from talking about his pension that comes up in 25, potentially a conflict of interest for Jagmeet Singh having to make this decision, right? If I trigger an election, which is probably the right thing to do, I may lose the seat and may not get my pension. But if I don't trigger an election, I won't lose my seat and I will get my pension. Conflict of interest. Oh, shucks. I mean, it's really about these Liberals and how they're terrible, but maybe they'll put something forward that I agree with. Sure, Jagmeet. Do you believe that? Does anybody believe that? Holy smoke, right? It's pretty crazy stuff. Pierre Poilievre says sellout Singh has become stuntman Singh. Today, he refused to commit to voting non-confidence to trigger a carbon tax election. So yesterday's video was also a stunt. We need a carbon tax election now to elect a common sense government that will axe the tax, build the homes, blah, blah, blah. And so Pierre Poilievre is saying he's not going to do it, guys. He's not going to do it. We dare you to do it. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. So there's nothing that is forcing him to do it, right? So like maybe his caucus, maybe the caucus, but hey, like the pressure campaign worked, so keep the pressure up, right? Go after the caucus and say, why are you allowing this crazy out of control leader to keep you in this deal that he says is intolerable, right? Like he says one thing and then does another. How can you keep this two-faced leader on, right? Go after Jagmeet Singh to the caucus. Make the case that they have to replace him. Make that case to the Canadian public too, so they can get in on the pressure. And then you get the caucus pressuring and the public pressuring at the same time. And then it's an Oreo sandwich of Jagmeet Singh. Gross.
Speaking of the Liberals.
Here's Alex Zoltan again. He says, breaking: Trudeau's Liberal National Campaign Director calls it quits before the election begins. He's like, I'm getting out of Dodge. I don't want this loss under my belt. Here we go.
Speaking of the Liberals, we're also hearing that Jeremy Broadhurst, the Liberals' National Campaign Director, is stepping down. With more on that big news, let's go to CTV's Rachel Aiello, who's standing by at our studios in Ottawa with more. Rachel, on what exactly this means, what the takeaway is this bad news for the Liberals?
Good afternoon, Todd. Yes, so we have confirmed that Jeremy Broadhurst is stepping down as of the end of the month as the National Campaign Director for the Liberal Party of Canada. So in a context where we're talking about NDP leader Jagmeet Singh saying today that the next election is likely earlier than we thought even a day ago, and this really throws that next election into clear focus. If the Liberals have now lost their national campaign director, that is going to be a pressing issue for that party. In this letter from Mr. Broadhurst, he goes on to say that he still has the utmost confidence in Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party, but his feelings are because the stakes are so high in that next election and because of the time he spent with the party, he no longer feels like he has the energy, vigor, and vision to be the best person leading that charge.
So I'm curious what the takeaway might be politically here. Is this a sign of people
jumping? His whole plan is, I don't know, call them racist. Call them racist again. Has Warren Kinsella been hired by anybody? Yeah, the Conservatives. Oh, darn. So that's all his ideas. So time for some new blood, I guess. CTV News is reporting Conservative cuts party to share platform closer to the next election. Andrew Scheer says he's one of the deputy party leaders. And so this is not surprising, I suppose. Trump did the same thing, saying, if I give my plan now, they're going to steal it. And Kamala Harris has stolen everything. No tips for no taxes on tips. Kamala Harris stole that and stole a bunch of other things. So they asked, what's your plan for the whole Ukraine thing? Like, how are you going to end that? And he said, I've got a super plan that's going to end it in a day. But I can't tell you that because, surprise is part of the plan, which is great. Because is that believable? I mean, not really, right? Like people were raking Kamala over the coals when she said the same thing. Democrats say the same thing. Conservatives say the same thing. Trump says the same thing. It's kind of funny, but you're going to have to wait. And I mean, like the Liberals have been criticized for not having a platform. The Conservatives have, and so on and so on. I remember Harper being criticized. I remember Justin Trudeau being criticized. So it is part and parcel, I suppose, especially after the party transitioned from Aaron O'Toole to Poilievre. They still have the Aaron O'Toole's last election plan up on the website as far as I've seen it. So they haven't replaced any of that language or anything like that. So as far as kind of like tradition goes, that's still the official policy. But Pierre Poilievre will replace it with his platform, and then that'll be the official policy. But like at the last convention, or which convention was it? The milk convention where they found the milk, the Andrew Scheer's convention. And then all the people went to the convention when Bernier stepped out and he didn't want to be part of the Conservatives anymore. And all of the people voted to end the dairy cartel, the milk stuff. And then the Conservatives didn't do that. So it's one of those things where like, I'm not surprised by any of these things that happen. Having Conservatives act like a political party and close out their membership and close out the people who are supporting them, et cetera, by saying, oh, no, it helps the party for us to do this. And then people say, yeah, we're helping the party, right? But like, it's better to just put your stuff out there. Like this is what I'm going to do. This is how it's going to get done. And with regards to Trump, it's difficult. That's a difficult one because I don't know, because negotiating doesn't work through third parties, right? Like you can't have an FBI negotiator talking to the press saying, listen, we're going to offer them this. And like, but really wink, wink, wink. And then, cause like the guy might be watching the news or watching that thing. Right. So like, but I feel like transparency should be the order of the day. The more I think about my idea about the bug bounties, we should have all emails are open and transparent. And if you find impropriety, you get a big government check. And the person who you found out or who was committing the impropriety gets, a knock on the door from people who will actually hold them accountable and not with a $500 fine, right? Like, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay, here's a little bit of this. Conservative House Leader Andrew Scheer. Oh, I thought he was okay. I thought he was deputy leader of the party, but maybe that's somebody else. Says Canadians will have to wait until closer to the next federal election to learn about the party's platform. As we get closer to the next election, Canadians will have a comprehensive conservative platform that will speak to making life more affordable and getting our country back on track, Scheer told CTV's Power Play Vasikopoulos in an interview on Thursday. Scheer's comments came after the NDP pulled out of its supply and confidence agreement with the Liberals on Wednesday, increasing the likelihood that a federal election could happen sooner than scheduled. Following the announcement, the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre called upon the NDP to vote for a carbon tax election at the earliest confidence vote in the House of Commons. Asked multiple times by Kopoulos whether Canadians deserve to know the Conservative Party's objectives if an election were to happen soon, Scheer said absolutely, but would not elaborate further. So, yes, you deserve to know. Next question. Joe Warmington is responding to Mark Petrone. Mark Petrone is responding to Bitchute. And Bitchute is sharing a picture of her with Justin Trudeau. You think they're on a date? I'm just kidding. And she says, I'm at the opening for TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, and Prime Minister Trudeau is here getting a very warm welcome. He is always with the people. I never see that other guy anywhere, right? They're purposely not using Pierre Poilievre's name. And Marc Patron says, when we finally throw that criminal scumbag out of office, there will be dancing in the streets. It'll be regular folks throwing the biggest party in Canadian history. I can't wait. And Joe Warmington responds to Mark, and he says, do you know TIFF receives $23 million in taxpayer support from Trudeau's government, which means they are the lifeline to it existing like they are with Canadian media industry, Canada's media industry. These entities no longer operate on their own steam. They are part of the government, a change from previous times. Yeah, there used to be a time where Toronto International Film Festival could stand on its own because like things like Cannes and other film festivals stood on their own because the stuff produced by movie makers wasn't propaganda garbage. And now it is propaganda garbage. And so I guess they don't make money because nobody's interested in seeing movie stars in downtown Toronto, I guess, right? I guess. Here is, this is part of the election series because I didn't really have anywhere else to put it. But the damage done, so like CTV is talking about cuts, right? The Conservatives are going to cut. They're going to cut. That's what Jagmeet Singh is saying too. And if we cut $23 million from the TIFF budget, cool. I'm really okay with that. If we cut a whole bunch of ministries that are going after equity and DEI and all the rest, great. If we cut the human rights tribunals, great. Let's cut that. Let's cut them all. If we cut the drugs, the free drugs, the safe injection sites, all that other stuff, great. What else can we cut? Like, I already like this idea. You don't have to sell it to me, right? And yet they're trying to frame it as a negative. And I'm saying, holy cow, give me some scissors, buddy. Like, let's get cutting super quick, right? Cuts. Let's do it super fast as possible. Here's a victim of our drug policies in Canada. Here we go.
Stop giving us dailies. Enable us.
It gets that. It says
because it fucking controls us.
Okay, so he's mumbling. It says, how can the government help?
Stop giving us.
And it says, stop giving us dillies. It enables us. Because it controls us. They keep us under their thumb. The Liberal Party.
They keep us down here by doing that. You know how hard it is to get off dillies?
He says they keep us down here by doing that. Do you know how hard it is to get off dillies? Sorry if I'm saying it again and it's bothersome, but he's a little mumbly, so I feel like it's helping.
1,000 times harder than getting off fucking fentanyl.
He says getting off dillies is 1,000 times harder than getting off fentanyl. Do you think that the government's free drug program is working? What do you think? Do you think the intention of when you say working, I think it's working to do what the government wants, which is to keep people under their thumb, controlled, and near death. Anyway, here's what he says. Does it look like it's working? They don't know what they're doing. He says they don't know what they're doing. If they did know what they were doing, we wouldn't be down here. So cut. Let's cut it all. Moving on, I often talk about how the whole government is at different levels scamming us, and elected officials are scamming us by giving companies they have a partnership in or controlling interest in or ownership stake in, making sure that those businesses get government contracts, sweetheart contracts, a whole bunch of money contracts. That same thing has happened with unelected bureaucrats all up and down the Liberal government. And so Holly Doan has another example of this. And so this is all part and parcel of the same scam. And I feel like it is a iceberg, a huge, massive iceberg that we can't see the extent, but it is massive. Holly Doan says, former ISEDCA manager, ISED is Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada manager, pleads guilty to breach of trust without jail time. Mark P. of Long Sault, Ontario, paid 72 sole-sourced federal contracts to his own company and pocketed 39% profit. So there you go, 39% profit. So pretty crazy, right? 39% profit's not a bad profit. And is that okay? I guess not, right? People are getting in trouble for that kind of stuff, so not so good. Let's do our grab bag of governance. We're going to talk about birth rates as well, which is they're low and falling, which is interesting. Nordic McGee says, this is rich, seen as these people cannot name 11 actual traitors in our House of Commons. So Dominic LeBlanc says, we stand united with the United States on confronting Russia's aggression against democratic societies. Any Canadian aiding Russia to spread disinformation, criminal and covert activities, and corruption to undermine our sovereignty will face the full force of Canadian law. And so Tim Pool took money, and I guess it's a little bit worse than I initially thought. I thought it was kind of a smear, but it seems like they spun up this other media thing, took a lot of money for not very much work, and they didn't have a very good result, really. And like the views on the channel didn't get a very good result. And now we find out that it was all Russian, like it was a lot of Russian money. So all of my subscribers are in the like $5 to $25 range mostly, where I have some subscribers who pay a little bit more, but like that's not usual. It's out of the normal, right? And so like it's interesting to me if somebody came to me and said, hey, we want you to produce 4 videos a month and we're going to give you $100,000 a video. So we're going to give you $400,000 a month. Cool. I mean, like, number one, okay, sounds good. Can I just do my video, or like, is there a specific thing you want me to do on the video? Do I have to do it topless, or? So I could be talked into it. No, I'm just kidding. My chest is far too hairy. But first, you probably say, oh, okay. And then second, you'd ask, like, what are the parameters? What does the video have to be about, or whatever? And if you have full control, maybe you don't have so many questions. But it's hard to believe that you wouldn't have any kind of things to fulfill for that kind of money. So I guess this deal was something like that. And now it's come out that it's the Russians. And so I saw Tim Pool post Slava Ukraini and like all sorts of other stuff. So I don't know, man. There's all sorts of interesting things going on. But that was yesterday. I reported on it, and that was being used to like say we have to crack down on social media to make sure that people aren't spreading, disinformation that Russia wants you to spread, or that, another country that's against your country wants you to spread, and so on and so forth. And like it seemed, and they want to, come down and bring the full force of Canadian law against anybody who does. And it seems like a strange departure from how the world viewed speech not very long ago. And so they're going to try and take people in on terrorist charges, on all sorts of other stuff, for colluding with Russia to undermine our democracy, while at the same time there's 11 Chinese traitors, and we've known about this for a year and more than a year, March 23, and nothing's been done about that. But some social media people got paid some money by some Russians, and boy howdy, are we going to throw the book at them. There's very strange things happening here, and things that we should be paying attention to. It completely undermines any kind of trust in the government. Completely, totally. These guys, I also talk about often how our local governments are undermined by global agencies, the United Nations, Bloomberg. Bloomberg does climate change stuff. They took them to Dubai. So all of these kind of world trips and whining and dining are meant to influence people's behavior, and they've got whole infrastructure built out. No Great Reset says, have you heard of ICLEI? ICLEI. I don't know how to say it, and I'm terrible at saying names, so that's the one. But it says Local Governments for Sustainability is a global network working with 2,500 local and regional governments committed to sustainable urban development. And ICL Canada, where's ICL Canada? ICL Canada's on this list here. ICL Canada, there you go. They're everywhere. ICL USA, ICL Seas, ICL World Congress, ICL East Asia, everywhere. They're everywhere. And they're trying to continue the work of moving forward the Sustainable Agenda 2030 goals. And so there's money. Like if you say, hey, everybody, we should do this idea, and people like your idea, and like kind of fizzles out because like 15 people hear about it and that's it, right? And then it kind of fizzles out. But if you have a global infrastructure, you're like, hey, we should do this thing, and then people in East Asia say, yeah, we should do this thing. And then people in the United States say, yeah, we should do this thing. And then people in the seas say the same thing. And then the World Congress says the same thing. And they're paying money to do all these things. That looks more legitimate. And then people mobilize in a different way. And all of these people are paid to mobilize, but not paid by ISIL necessarily, although ISIL has its own money, probably NGOs from tax-paying dollars, but ISIL has its own money. But their target are people who are on the public purse, people who work for taxpayers at municipalities, right? So those people get brainwashed, and then they go to these conferences where they go, rah, rah, sispumba, we're doing bike lanes this year. And then $40 million gets spent on bike lanes, but no potholes get fixed. And ISIL, right? And the sustainable development goals are moved forward. And that's how it works. And same thing with, like, they spend money on anything but good sense. And then they're shit shocked when this is what Montreal looks like. So this is a new encampment in Montreal. Here we go. It's kind of quiet, but it looks like a garbage dump. Like, it looks like a garbage dump. You wouldn't, if there was a festival at like Guelph Lake, if this was Hillside, after the Hillside Festival, and you looked at this, you would be like, this is, how would people allow other people to get this depraved and messy and gross? Like, you live here. Do you not have any pride at all? They don't. Of course not, because they don't own it, right? So why would they have any pride in it? Holly Doan says Parks Canada is withholding until 2025 details of its forest management prior to the July 24th Jasper wildfire. Managers 4 years ago warned of dead trees and the fuel load. So we already know, what we already know is that they damn well knew that they should have been taking action to fix this, and they didn't do anything. Is anybody going to be held responsible for this? No, of course not. I hope I'm wrong, but it's not usual for, like, if something happened that was improper, it's not like you show up at work and you look in your work mailbox and you find a paper and it says, like, Dear Mark, we've decided that what happened in 2023 and in the lead up to the 2024 wildfire was inappropriate. We'd like to discuss it with you post 2025. See you soon. Like, that doesn't happen. If they thought it was inappropriate, they would want to talk to you right away. They would say, like, we've got to talk to you about this right now. Like, you're fired, or like, you did a really terrible job, and oh my gosh, look what happened. 2025, just, we've got to let things calm down, you know, so we'll talk to you in 2025. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful